So we're talking about absolute value today. It comes out of chapter 2 in your textbook. We just finished chapter 1. So maybe on the tippy top part of your notes, you want to put chapter 2. This topic can be found there. And it's the 23rd. We're only going to do a little bit of chapter 2. We're going to talk about absolute value today, and we'll talk about some properties, real number properties. But then the rest of chapter 2 is integer work, positive and negative numbers. And we pretty much covered and mastered that last year. So we're going to fly through 2 in just a few lessons and get into 3, which is using signed fractions. But something that kids tend to forget from year to year, because it's a new concept, is absolute value. So we're going to spend today talking about absolute value. If you haven't already done so, you should draw a quick number line on the top of your notes. You don't need to make it go quite as far as mine if you don't want. -5 to +5 would probably be just fine. So sketch your number line there quickly. And then we will talk about what absolute value means, what you remember. Okay, so anybody remember anything about this? First of all, actually let me step back a second. This right here is read as the absolute value of -3. Anyone remember anything about that? Or absolute value at all? Mikey?
Absolute value is the opposite number.
So you think the absolute value of -3 is 3. That's true, but I don't want to use the opposite all the time. So Mikey's right that the absolute value of -3 is 3, but let's talk now about what absolute value means. What does it mean? Logan?
Oh, I was going to answer that question.
Okay. Daryl?
The distance from 0?
Yeah, the absolute value is defined as a number's distance from 0. So here's -3 on our number line. It is 3 units away from 0. Can you think of another number that has an absolute value of -3? Not -3, sorry. Another number that has an absolute value of 3. It's another number that's 3 units away from 0. Jack?
-3.
Well, we just talked about -3. Besides -3.
3.
Positive 3, yeah. Positive 3 is also 3 units away from 0. So we could say the absolute value of positive 3 equals 3. It's a distance. So let me give you an example of distance. And you have to be able to estimate your distance to your house. Distance being miles, and I don't care if you're super accurate or not. But who drives out of the parking lot up here and turns right to go home? Who turns right out of the parking lot to go home? Mary. Okay. And who turns left to go home? Kate. Okay. So now listen to the question I asked both girls, and girls, you're just giving you an estimate in miles. I don't care if you're really accurate. Mary, how far do you live from school? 5 miles. Let's just say 5 miles. All right. Caitlin, how far do you live from school?
Like 1.5 miles.
Like 1.5 miles. Did either of those girls, even though they live in opposite directions, say -5 miles or -1.5 miles? This is doable? No, because it's a distance, and distance is always just how far. So when you see absolute value, you should think distance, how far, how many units. So it's always positive. It is not the opposite of. It's always positive. Okay? Questions about that? We have some real straightforward numerical examples to go through here. The first one, I want to volunteer to read it correctly and say what the answer is at the same time. Do both. Luke?
The absolute value of -8 is 8.
Very good. -8 is 8 units from 0. What about the next one? What about the next one? Anna?
The absolute value of 5 is
Very good. 5. And the last one here, Mary?
the absolute value of -99 is 99.
Very good. Negative 99 is 99 units from 0. Okay? We good with that? That's kind of not very challenging or interesting though. Important concept, but this is a great chance for us to tie it to some other ideas to practice. So our next examples are going to look a little bit more algebraic. Fine. Turn the page. All right. Copy down these directions, folks. Evaluate the following expressions when A equals -5, B equals 2, and C equals -4. You want to copy the directions so that you can see your homework looks very similar to this. Make sure you understand the directions. Okay, so you have your directions copied. Let's talk about what it means. What do you think these directions want us to do when it says evaluate these expressions, blah, blah, blah? Liam?
Fill in, or replace A and B with the corresponding numbers.
Numbers, and then simplify. Yeah, very good. So evaluate is basically substitute and simplify. Now, what does it mean when the A, B are written next to each other like that? What's going on there, Melaitis?
They're very multiplied.
Right, very good. So this is the absolute value of -5 times 2. Absolute value symbols are always taller than the numbers and letters that they're around, so you shouldn't confuse them with ones because they're taller, okay? They're also like a grouping symbol. If there's stuff inside of them, it's kind of like parentheses, do that first, right? So -5 times 2, what is that? Logan?
That is 10.
Positive or negative? Inside of there, -5 times?
Negative.
Yeah, you were doing it all at once, I think. So it's the absolute value of -10, which is 10. Right? Now I want to do 2 with you. I don't want to let you loose on it because I want to point out something important here. 2, we have AB minus the absolute value of C. We're still going to substitute in first. So my A is -5 times my B is 2 minus the absolute value of -4. What I want to point out and make sure you understand, you know how a lot of times kids will do plus a negative, they'll change their subtraction? You can't do that inside of an absolute value sign. So don't do that. Just work with what's here until you've gotten rid of these absolute value signs, then deal with the subtraction. Okay? Otherwise, when the problems get more complicated, you're going to mess up the value in there. So, order of operations. What should I do first in this problem here? Should I do first here? Sarah?
Multiply -5 times 2,
Good, and you get?
-10.
Good, so we have -10 minus the absolute value of -4. What is the absolute value of -4? Jack?
4.
4. So this problem becomes -10 minus 4. Now, if you wanted to change your subtraction to adding the opposite at this point, you could do that by all means. -10 minus 4 is the same as -10 plus -4. And what's your answer? Either way, Mikey?
-14.
-14, very good. Okay, so this problem was important because I wanted to talk to you about not changing signs inside of absolute value, okay? Questions? All right, I want you and your partner next to do these 2 together. Okay, so if you did these 2 correctly, you should have gotten positive 39 and positive 37. Make sure you pay attention to the subtracting and the negative in both cases in this problem, and that's the same as plus, add, positives. Any questions about those problems? You and your partner work through them? Yeah, Mike?
Do you need to answer both principal problems?
No, just one. But right now, pay attention to the next problem because it's very important and it's my last one for today. All right? So down here, woo, look at that fun little problem.
Yay!
This is going to also allow me to talk about a couple things that came up on your quiz. So we have here the absolute value of A minus B minus the square root of 100 minus 36 plus 3 squared. We build better brains by getting you to use what you already know and tying it to what you're learning. So what's the very first thing that I should do with this problem? Vaishu?
Put in numbers. for answers.
Yeah, put in our numbers for our A and B, and I don't remember, well, is it
Negative 5 and 2.
-5 minus 2? So that's all I'm gonna do the first go around. Now, you know in the order of operations we have parentheses? Well, that's really grouping symbols. Any grouping symbols, you do what's inside of it. Then exponents, then multiplication or division or addition and subtraction. These absolute value symbols and this square root really are grouping these numbers together. They're like grouping symbols. So we have to do what's inside both of them first. That's the highest on our order of operations. So what's -5 minus 2 equal to? Darryl?
-7.
So this is the absolute value of -7 minus, what's 100 minus 36? 100 minus 36. Will?
64.
64. Plus my 3 squared. Now, one of the big issues that came up on quizzes is kids took the square root in a problem like this and extended it out over other stuff in the problem that it really didn't include.
Oh.
You can't do that. My square root is just of this difference. So notice how I just keep my square root here. Don't extend it out over other stuff. You're changing the problem, and on the quiz you kind of made a nightmare for yourself. Okay, so now we're past that. Remember, roots and exponents are both like exponents, so we're going to do those next in the order of operation. The absolute value of -7 minus, what's the square root of 64? Jack?
8.
8. And what's 3 squared, Caitlin?
9.
9. It's the absolute value of -7, Navacha. 7. So my problem becomes 7 minus 8 plus 9. Here's the last thing. Quiz, people got order of operations errors. Remember, when all you have left is addition and subtraction, you work from left to right. You can't jump in and do this first. That would be an order of operations error, and you'll get the wrong answer. Because the 8 is really not being added to the 9, it's being taken away from this quantity. So make sure you work left to right. What's 7 minus 8? Erna? Plus my 9, and I get a final answer of 8. Any questions about that? Will?
I just have to say, if you did add up the 8 and the 9 and then subtract the 7, your answer would be 10.
Yeah,
It would be off.
it would be wrong. Yeah. Okay, great. That's it. I'm going to give you your homework now.